But it's so confusing.
I have a question.
You know,
it's not live
until stuff happens.
Zoom quality is not their problem.
Zoom, yeah. What's up, everyone? This is
Oh.
Jason Tucker. This is WP Watercooler, episode number 306. Say, I know you had something to say.
Are we live or are we live?
We are live.
Hashtag deep thoughts.
Awesome.
WP
I want
philosophy.
to say thank you for all of you folks for coming and hanging out with us over around the WP Watercooler. Let's go around and get this particular episode started. Steve, reverse chronological order. We'll go in chronological.
Going with the Z's. We're going with the Z's.
I am
the elder
Steve
statesman.
Wow, I am Steve. We're going in reverse order by age. I am Steve. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run.
But now, see, the problem is at some point I have to judge how old Say is. That gets a little.
I'm proud of how old I am.
All right, good.
Jason.
Oh, check that out. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website, jasontucker.blog. Maybe Cosper's older than me, but we'll just go with me being next. How about that? Cosper, how about you?
Hey, what up, everybody? It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka the Human Marquee Tag. Happy to be here today.
Nice. Always good to have you on, Cosper. Thanks for hanging out with us. Jonathan, how about you?
I think I'm next age-wise, but we can just put the ladies last. It's no big deal.
Oh, I'm not
Say, please.
Last.
Please. Go for it, Say. Please.
Say,
No, I was making a political point.
No, please. I want to copy what you say anyway, Say. So please.
Yeah, well, who am I? Who are we all really? I'm Say Reed, though, for reals, in this world, prime world. I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at Say Reed Media, on most of the things, occasionally, sometimes.
Hey, it's Chris.
Whoa! Guest appearances. Cameo!
Chris gets introduced second, by the way, in the order that we're going in.
Nice. Jonathan Wold. Normally I'm enjoying the winter North Idaho, but today I'm enjoying the beautiful weather down here in Oceanside area. And we got Chris.
I'm Chris Lemma. Hey guys.
Yo.
I remember there used to be a Chris Lemma on this show at one point.
Yeah.
Wasn't there? There was a show. There was a Chris Lemma on this show at one point.
It was a different Chris Lemma.
Different Chris Lemma. That's right. Yeah. So today we were talking a little bit during our pre-show about 45 seconds before we hit the go button that we may want to get.
Before we became alive.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That we may have even said it while we were trying to start this thing up.
It's anybody's guess.
Right, exactly. Say, tell us a little bit about what's going on with the governance project. Maybe we can kind of jump off of that a little bit and see what's
okay.
Going on with that.
Well, I would like to reiterate that was proposed literally 45 seconds before we turned the show on. So I have not discussed this with the people of the WP governance project. So this
what does the governance project say?
This is a rogue, unauthorized appearance, which is actually very fitting for the organization. So it's fine, or for the project. The WP governance project. I'm done. I'm getting there. Just hold on. What
does it say?
Morton, Hendrickson, and Rachel Cherry have been speaking on this across the WordPress media sphere. Vlogosphere. So they've been talking a lot about it. There was a really good interview they did on WPWeekly, and I haven't read or seen the thing on the Tavern yet, so can't comment on that one. But essentially, what the WP governance project, it was birthed out of, I would say, probably a frustration with the Gutenberg process. It came to a head when it was announced by Morton Hendrickson at WordCamp US in a very rogue operation where he brought additional people up onto the stage to basically speak on certain points that he wanted to amplify, including the announcement of this governance project, which has two main goals. One is to, essentially at this point, two main goals. One is to document the structure and decision-making process of the WordPress project because there's a lot of concern about transparency and leadership structure. And it's not so much that people are looking to protest the structure so much as understand the structure. And then the other component of that, once our own house is in order, as it were, there's definitely a call for WordPress to be a more active part of the open web and the discussions that are happening on that level, which would require a little bit of representation as opposed to just people going out there and speaking ad hoc, at will, ostensibly representing 34% of the web. So that's the project in a nutshell.
One of the things I was really impressed by, and like the open, well, it's very interesting for a lot of reasons, but there's a lot of opportunity to look at what other projects have done. Like there isn't like there's a lot of different examples to look at out there. And so, so what's next in the project? Like there's been a few meetings so far. Like what's
the first step is to figure out how to organize the project. So there's a little bit of we talked about it briefly on this show.
Very meta.
Right? It is. I mean, but you have to start from somewhere. So there's a Slack channel. So folks who are interested can join that Slack channel. You join with your same, well, I don't actually know if you joined with the same email now as your WordPress chat or whatever it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
I think it might be.
You do.
Okay, good. Then there you go. But essentially there's 3 main processes happening now. The first one is how does the project itself work, like the governance project. The second one is beginning the research process of how WordPress works. And the third one is researching external models. So for example, was it last week? We had the fellas from AMP on, from Google AMP, who talked about, the conversion of the leadership structure of AMP from the benevolent dictator for life model to a different model. And so, that information went right into the research doc. So basically that's like researching what's going on, what's happening with Drupal, what's happening with all of these different open source projects, Mozilla, AMP, across the sphere of open source, and what's working and what's not working. And that's just really, it's so we can all be on the same page when we're having these conversations. Everyone has a different understanding of how WordPress, the community, works. And I think that is confusing to everyone. You've seen it recently in what happened with the marketing committee announcements and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that there's a problem with that structure, but the problem is that no one knows what's happening. That's the problem. So that was a really, really long soliloquy. So I'm just going to for a second here.
Well, really appreciate your involvement in it. I mean, it's always interesting when something starts. I feel like I can't get a clear read on the energy because it's kind of a loaded, like a lot of people care a lot about WordPress.
Yeah.
Right? But like something like this, like governance is a very complex just topic overall. So it's interesting. Like I watching the chat, like there's clearly a lot of smart people here who care about things, but like as humans, this organizing ourselves, it's complicated. So appreciate your involvement in it.
Well, it's also really meta, right? Like you said, because we're talking about organizing something over here while we've got this other thing that's happening. And of course, we should also probably talk about is the fact that the WordPress project, which has never had an executive director, suddenly has an executive director. And I think that's great. I think Josefa is a dedicated and well-versed person in the community. She's really paying attention and participating. I mean, as a paid person, but she's doing a good job at that. She's not just sitting back and watching, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know what that does. We don't know what that job does. There's not like a job description for the executive director of WordPress. So even now that we have someone in that position, the question, what's the relationship between the BDFL, Benevolent Dictator for Life, and the executive director, regardless of whether it's Josefa or Matt, which it is, obviously, so that's important now, but what's that relationship? What is the role of the marketing and communications lead? We don't know. And it's that unknowing. It's not that people mind how it's going to be. It's that we don't know. And it's the not knowing that makes everyone uneasy when our whole livelihoods are part of this organization. It makes you uncomfortable.
Well,
Yeah,
but
now say, I know that you don't speak for the governance project, of course, like no one is going to go ahead and assume that, but I want to go ahead and make it clear. But do you see the move to appoint an executive director and someone in charge of marketing as sort of a, look, I'm opening things up a little bit? Or
Oh, definitely.
yeah, I mean, long term, I mean, it might take some of the heat off, but I mean, I personally don't see it as a move that is sustainable as actually having true open governance on the project.
Well, it's like I said, we still don't know what that is. So now it's like, okay, so there's someone else here making decisions. But what's the process for those decisions? We still don't know. So it doesn't solve the unknown problem. What it will do, hopefully, and I really do have a lot of confidence in Josefa, in her knowledge, in her intentions. So as an individual, I think it's probably a really great choice for WordPress, and I'm glad that she's there. That being said, someone needs to put out a job description and just tell us what she's doing.
So does that mean that WP mayor becomes WP governor? Is that what happens here? Sorry, inside joke.
But essentially what this all boils down to is communication. I mean, right, that's the real
Yes.
problem here.
Yes.
In the governance project or Gutenberg or the way it was rolled out, everything really boils down to just a communication issue, right? I don't know that, and look, I've watched all of the blab, not WP blab, but I've watched all of the chatter, on the internet. I've seen the threads. I've been kind of following, on the sidelines what's been going on, right? And it's really easy to point fingers or think that somebody's doing something malicious or bad or evil or somebody had it out for somebody. But really, all this boils down to is just bad communication, right? And so all of these projects and all, and
It's so sad.
the new people that are in charge of this or that, really, hopefully that'll just fix the communication problem, right? Because our community as a whole is kind of left in the dark on things, or we get things as they sort of come, right? And it feels like it's very, from the hip, right? When it's not, it's just bad communication. That's all it is.
It might be. I mean, it could be. But
And
we
that's
don't
okay.
know.
It's okay too, right?
And if everybody's got literally their businesses, their livelihoods, their employees, their children, their health insurance is riding on this software, and we're all investing, and no one's mad about the structure. It's been working for 15 years. Everyone's just like, can we get a roadmap? Can we see what's happening? We need to know where we're going, because we're all going there, and we're on a bus. It's like we're on a plane with no destination. And
that's right. But what you're referring to is the people that are making their money off of developing WordPress, right? Or running WordPress sites, or the people in our community. I think this has a bigger impact because WordPress, like you said, runs 34% of the internet. And, a lot of those are hobby sites, but a lot of those are businesses, right? Those are people running businesses on this platform, right? So when decisions are made about this platform and they're not communicated well, it affects business. And that's what I get concerned about.
I think the way that it affects the businesses is not directly. And so because it doesn't affect them directly, there's a thought that it doesn't affect them, that it only impacts the community, that this is only inside baseball.
Yeah.
But all of those WordPress people, business owners, all of us, whatever, we represent WordPress to all of those people. And if we're having new meetings and we're like, well, we're going to try some other softwares. I'm going to recommend this platform for this client because I don't know where they're going with this and I don't feel confident anymore. Then that person's just going to do whatever, we say. So the confidence level of our community and the WordPress business community, people who make money and live off of WordPress, that's really important to the overall 34%, to that it's the advocacy of all of those people that has put everybody on WordPress in the first place.
And I think it could happen in even a worse way than you just described, right? Because as an agency owner, I don't talk about software with my clients, right? Most of my clients don't know what WordPress is. They don't know they're on WordPress. The ones who are curious, we'll talk about that, but I don't lead with it, right? So if WordPress, let's say there's some day in the future where WordPress is not my first tool of choice for building websites, right? I'm just going to switch quietly, right?
Right.
And so it's just going to go away very quietly, and that's worse.
That is worse. And that's why I think that this is so important, because everyone underestimates the kind of like, it's like almost like, dark matter, right? There's like matter and dark matter. In the WordPress world, the dark matter is all of these people using WordPress, doing WordPress out there, running WordPress sites, who aren't involved, who don't have part of this conversation. And, they just hear the rumblings, right? They just hear from someone, and they're all very rumor oriented. And if they have a problem and they go online and they see drama, that just introduces doubt and concern. And there's no way to really reach those folks directly. So rumors are the only thing that reach them. This amorphous group of the biggest part of WordPress.
Absolutely. But I think there's even another set of people don't even know that the drama is happening. They're not involved in
they don't know at all.
All they know is something broke, right? So I'm going to try something else.
Yeah. I mean, I want to reiterate that I think that Gutenberg, whatever upgrade happened, or needed to happen, something had to happen, because tech was far behind. So in no way, do I think that this was a bad choice technologically or feature-wise, but we're still feeling the repercussions, and just slapping an executive director and a marketing communication person on there, I think is more of a covering up the problem than fixing the problem. I hope I'm wrong on that, because I have a lot of confidence in both Joost and Josepha. So
it's I like both of the people who were appointed. I know that some people may not, but I really think that I'm trying to be. I see Steve laughing. I'm trying to be but I really think that seeing these people added is like, okay, I've heard your complaints that we need more people maybe tending to this than just one benevolent dictator for life. So I'm just going to go ahead. I've heard your complaints, and I've added 2 people. And it's just
window dressing a little bit.
Here's the thing.
And we need to see what they do before we pass any judgment. However, I think that the open governance model that happens on other projects is a great idea. I'm fully behind Morton and in this regard.
Here's the thing, right? These are both 2 quality people that do a great job, right? But that it's almost impossible to please everybody in that position. Matt could have put Mother Teresa in that position, and somebody would have said, she sucks.
She's a zombie.
Right? That's just our community, right? So there's going to be criticism, right? But these are 2 really good, smart people that I've worked with.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what happens, because even just knowing, there's 3 people who are kind of responsible and are going, are officially being held accountable to the community, and are willing to be held accountable to the community and are taking action in that vein. I think that's really good. And so, I think it's going to be super exciting to see what they come up with. At the same time, the WP Governance Project is literally just documenting what's happening. So, documenting the fact that there's a new executive director in this position, and, documenting the fact that it's been established that leads are appointed by, in a certain fashion, and the terminology between a lead and a rep, and what a rep does and what a lead does, and that stuff.
But let's jump to the end here, okay? Let's jump to the end game. At the end of the day, it's still mass decision, right? Yeah. What's going to happen? Is there going to be some sort of hostile takeover?
No. What I think is going to happen, honestly, is that Matt is a reasonable human being who has the health of this project in his. It is in his best interest. It is what I believe he wants as a geek, as a person who created this thing. He's not trying to cannibalize his own community. This is a difficult thing. It's a lot of people. It's a big project. And, it shouldn't just be one person halfway kind of in charge of it. So the fact that there's 3 people in charge of the project that's got 34.7% of the web. Okay, good. I'm glad we have 3 people. 10% for each of you.
Say, what's your hope for the project over, say, the next year?
Oh, that's right. I was saying that. Thanks. My hope for the project is that we're able to document this, and that Matt, Josefa possibly can look at that and be like, let's talk about how this is accurate. Let's talk about how this isn't accurate. And, we as a community understand what the system is and agree upon that. And everyone's like, yep, this is what it is. And only then can we start to have a conversation. And that has to include the executive director, the benevolent dictator for life, the marketing communications lead. Only then can we have a conversation of, should it be this way, or is there a better way to be? If we just said right now, oh, there's obviously a better way to be, how do we know that? This has gotten us to 34.7% of the web. Maybe it's the best one.
That's it. What if all this happens and they say, thank you for your input?
Yeah, well, at least then we'll put it in we're going to put it in the report that says it doesn't matter what you do. It's futile, and love your dictator and just go about your day. Just have trust, have faith. No, that's the thing. That would go in the document, right? That would be part of that. Is there what is the, I don't want to say a method for redress of grievances. I'm going to go ahead and say a method for redress of grievances.
Okay. like a suggestion box, or like,
I mean, if you go to a meeting for something and there's a big problem, is it really clear who you're supposed to say that problem is to? If you're in a Slack channel and someone's harassing you, is it super clear where you go to do that? If there is a project you want to do and the rep on your project doesn't think that it's important, and you're trying to get other people to do it with you, can you just do that? And the problem is that you probably can in the system as is, and you're probably encouraged to. But because people don't know that, they don't do that. So like, for example, in the marketing committee, it says expressly a bunch of times on the different Trello cards, yeah, just go right ahead and pick a Trello card and work on something, right? But that's so open-ended that everyone's like, oh, I can do anything? That seems weird. I'm not going to do anything. Bye. See ya.
And a little overwhelming.
Yeah, like, now you're in charge.
Yeah, people kind of want to be told what to do, and they also want to be able to go to the person that told them what to do and say, am I doing
it's
the right
not
thing?
even so much like the being told, because there's certainly the case, but it's like, what are we working towards? If I'm going to contribute my insights and expertise, what's the direction? Like, there's no direction, or if there is a direction, good. Well, I want to be able to understand and affirm the direction, or challenge it perhaps. But if it's not clear what that is, but then when it comes to actual contributions, okay, maybe the direction doesn't fully make sense to me, but if it's clear, then I'll contribute to that because I care about this project.
Right.
I'm ultimately intrigued by how I see a lot of value in maturing to a point where we as WordPress are able to represent our collective interests in broader forums. Like when I think about the open web more broadly, like that's something that is, at least to me, a newer thought and idea. And I'm like, yeah, that actually kind of matters, right? Like, as decisions are being made. Yeah. Because I mean, for a lot, like WordPress to me represents so much about the health of the open web. And if WordPress is healthy and strong, I think that's good for the open web. So it's like, okay, yeah, what is the voice of WordPress?
Yes.
And similarly, I have a lot of confidence in the people involved in the project, but people are finite, and this project has a lot more value just beyond the people who are serving in it today. So it's it's very just interesting. I'm glad to see that there's activity. I guess to me, no matter what comes of this project specifically, I think it's going to be valuable there's there's plenty of reason we want specific things, but just awareness is an important first step in getting people to ask questions and think more about things. So
because how can you have conversations if everyone's got different scraps of information? You really just can't get anywhere if you're just constantly being like, oh, did you think, is that how it is? Oh, I don't actually know. Okay, cool. Let's go figure that out again. And like everyone keeps having those same conversations over and over and over and over. And it's like, has anyone heard of documentation? I don't know. It's a developer problem.
What?
But basically, that's what the WordPress governance project is. It's documentation for WordPress, the project. That's kind of what I'm envisioning it as the moment. Someone's got to work on the docs. Like, what the hell? I did want to make one quick point about in the participation as a contributor. I think that it continually surprises people when they do say things like, oh, go work on a Trello document or a Trello card, or Matt's like, anyone can do anything and you just go do it. But what that's forgetting is that there are different ways of participating, and not everyone, A, wants to, or B, has the ability to lead, right? Some people just want to help. And I would like to, I personally would like to help in certain areas, but if it's I volunteer to help and then I have to do everything and I can't just help, but I have to lead, I'm not going to do that because I can't contribute that. But I could also contribute help, right? So we have not made a place for that so much in the ecosystem, or in the contributor world. You can, there's ability to have a lot of, we have this weird problem where we have like a lack of leadership, but then like there's everybody can be a leader, but it's like with like, who do any of the leaders actually have supporters helping them on anything? Yeah. Like we all just going like this in different directions? Like that's what it feels like, right? Does it feel like that to every single one of us?
I think you have to grow leaders out of people who are just starting out in volunteering. And if you're volunteering to a common cause or common good, then slowly but surely you have people around you that go like, they recognize you and say, you know what, you're doing a great job in volunteering for this. Do you want to lead this thing and maybe get us into a direction that you think that we should go, or should we collectively figure out what's the best direction or best way to approach this? And that kind of makes best practices happen instead of everybody starting from scratch, where a lot of times people are starting from scratch and you go, why are you doing that thing when you could totally do it this way? And we've already blazed that trail and it works great, and just make that happen. But a lot of folks, they just go and say, well, I guess I'm starting from scratch.
Right. You're tossed in there and it's like, just go swim. And it's like, maybe we should, we've implemented the mentorship program, or the foundation has implemented the mentorship program for the WordCamps. There's no program like that for contributing. There's Contributor Day, but Contributor Day, you just all get thrown in, and it's like, go find your area on your table and go start talking to people and help. Just go help. Like what? Like that doesn't mean anything to anyone. So everyone we've got all these people who want to help, who want to contribute, and everyone's like, why aren't you contributing? It's like, well, we don't know how, even though it shows so clear to everyone how, we still can't.
And saying just pick something and start working on it is a little bit disingenuous, because I have seen long-standing stuff in track that anybody could just come along and pick up. And some people have come along and pick up. They've submitted patches, they've done the work, they've and here's a patch, here's something that is actually sitting there waiting to be implemented, and there's been no traction on the issue for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And it's just like, okay, yeah, just pick up anything and hope that it makes it in. That is not the message we need to be sending to people who we want to work on the software that powers 34% of.
We've basically like made it so that people have to fight to participate. They have to like go through the gauntlet to contribute. And that has probably cost us. I mean, we even know the public people who have quit publicly or have left publicly because of problems. But think of all the people, the great contributors, the great developers, the great designers, the great just like logistics people who are just like, I can't interface with this. I can't deal with this. I don't have time for this because I have a job and clients and stuff. And I would, but I can't. So I'm out. And they just don't. Like, we all know people like that. And that's a lot of people, and that's a lot of brain power that we are missing out on because of like some logistic and structural stuff that like, I don't know, humans have figured out how to do before. So we shouldn't have to like reinvent the wheel on like how to work together. Like,
yep. I mean, one of the resources that I've been kind of toying around with starting up is because of the fact I work in the nonprofit space, and I do have a heart for volunteer folks, is building out a place that people can actually figure out how they can volunteer for this stuff. That's not a WordPress ran place, but rather like, hey, here's how you can do this. So
Governance project. Governance project. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, but I don't think it's just that, because it also comes down to like volunteering for stuff that's outside of those sorts of things. So volunteering as somebody who runs a WordCamp or runs a WordPress meetup or teaches WordPress stuff. Any of those types of things are all volunteer type work that can be done. And so
those people, those volunteers, they run WordPress. They really do. And so that is governance. That's what that is. It's not separate from it. So that needs to be part of it. Let's document the volunteers. Let's figure out how can we onboard these people? How can we maximize the people who have turned out as WordCamp organizers? Where do they go? Like all this talent like needs to be documented at the very least.
Yeah. Well, I've went and set up a page on our site over on WPwatercooler. If you want to go take a look at that, it's WPvolunteer.com. You can go take a look at that thing and be able to just like leave a comment. Tell us what you've been doing.
Did you do that during the show?
Yeah, dude, this is what I do.
Just built a website during the show.
Just built a website. Whatevs. Anyhow, I want to say thank you very much for all you folks for coming out and hanging out with us. Really appreciate that. You know what? I totally, because at the very beginning when we first started this thing, I totally forgot to tell you that we do have a sponsor for this particular
episode. Do.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Go over to ServerPress's website, serverpress.com, for desktop server and all the stuff that they're doing over there. We really appreciate them and their efforts. So definitely go and take a look at that. Yeah, I totally blanked on that. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but we love you.
Best to last.
Yep. I'll talk to y'all later.
I'll download it 3 times just to make up for it.
Right? Exactly. All right, folks. You have a good one. Bye.